Hi everybody, welcome to Tigner Adventures. My name is David, and this video is a continuation of our last video because this is going to be talking about solar. If you look here, you can see, our video from putting the solar panels on, getting the wire ran down into the lower bay compartment. And right here is a stack of Victron equipment that we're going to be installing into that compartment. Now these are my bays, and that one goes back in a little ways and it's kind of a dead end. And this one over here has a tire in it, but it is all the way through, so I can get to that tire from the other side, so I really don't need to have that open right there. So I'm going to put a piece of plywood right in front of that, across that whole face there, and then plywood down the side here and down this side, and that's what we're going to be hooking all of our equipment to. But that way it'll get me the closest to the battery too, because on this side of the compartment I can't get to this. This is tanks and things, but the batteries are right on the other side of the tire there. So a little bit of a run to get to the battery. That'll be with 4/0 wire, so that'll be a little costly, but all the equipment will be in here, and this is where the wire is coming down through the refrigerator vent. So I went through a lot of different, figuring things out, trying to figure out the best place to put the equipment, which is where it's going to go. And there's lots of options on a motorhome or wherever, van, whatever you have, as far as where you're going to put things. You just want to make sure that it'll be kind of out of the way and workable solution. So the bay that I chose there it's right under the refrigerator bay, so the wires came right into it with no issue at all. It is still a little bit from the battery compartment, but it's really the closest compartment to the batteries. So without me redoing the whole battery piece of it, this is the best option that I have. I used to work in networking, and so I built a lot of network closets, and we'd put plywood in there and paint it and everything, make it look really nice. And that's what I'm going to do with this, is I'm going to go ahead and cut the plywood to the lengths that I need to make this work, and then I'm going to paint it white. And so once that's all done, then we can actually start installing our equipment. And so okay, while the paint's drying, we need to get this kind of cleaned up here where we're going to actually mount the board. So this stuff's got to come off and stuff like that. So, and yeah, I don't know what I do, but I don't know how I get paint all over me every time I paint. But anyway, paint's done, it's drying. So let's go ahead and take this stuff out. This is a net that goes up here to help keep that tire there, but we're going to put that piece of plywood up here instead. This also gives me an idea about how long that piece of wood is that I can put this screw into. Because I really have no idea what is on the other side of that. I'm guessing it's the C-rail of the motorhome. So hopefully there's nothing between it and this little wall right here. And there's no way to get in there to really decide. So there is some rivets right here, which is kind of weird. So I don't know, maybe they drilled some holes there and riveted there or something like that. But this is wood. We're going to screw to that, and it's got some plastic here for corners, so our wood will stick out just a little bit. And this up here has to be furred out so that our plywood can connect to it up there also. So what was up here was just these little twist things to hold this netting there. So we're just pulling it all out. Difference we're looking at right here. So if my plywood goes straight up here like that, This is this 2x2, which is really 1.5 inches. If that was mounted there, you'd see that we're still off just a little bit. I've got the boards just laying in here right now, but I'm going to go ahead and get those mounted on the wall. And my power cable going to my batteries is going from there all the way back to that battery compartment back there, which is where the little air hole vent area over there is. Well, there was only 2 bolts holding this, and then this opens up here. This is pretty cool. Man, you get a really good view in here. There's a lot of compartment stuff here. And so I just need to, I'm gonna run my wires through that wall right over there, over to here. So anyway, we gotta figure this out a little bit, see how that's gonna work. Plywood is now mounted into the compartment, so we are ready to start putting our equipment on there. I've got a Multiplus 2, and if you go to this video here, this is by Brian for RVing with Tito. Brian's somebody I met a few years ago, and he does such an excellent job at all kinds of DIY stuff. So if you never checked out his channel before, at least go check it out, because he's got some pretty cool ideas. I'm really eyeballing the TV lifter that he installed, but he's always doing really cool little remodel projects, and he makes them look like they're factory installed when he's done. So it's not some just stuff that's thrown together. When he's done, it looks professional. So he's a good resource. And so anyway, I was looking at his video, and I've talked to Brian a little bit, and he used a Multiplus 2, and he explained why he went with that, because he was a 50 amp rig. So that's why I'm saying go check out that video. It's pretty good. But then he also said, hey, they have this new one out now. So it's the same idea, except that it's got the transfer switch built into it. Well, in our particular case, we're 30 years old, and it's like a hodgepodge of, you know, wiring anyway. So we're just going to utilize what we got here and go based off of his original video. Or the reason to go with Victron is because then you have everything at the touch of your phone as far as looking at it from anywhere, and managing your system is all just done by your phone. Where what I have right now on Beulah, you know, like for example, my inverter, which is a really nice inverter, I can't do anything with it. You know, I can't control it or anything. I just have a Victron shunt in there that I can look at to see, you know, as far as what power is being drawn and what power is going in, kind of thing. But you know, that's what's going to my batteries. So that's the only way I can really tell what the inverter is doing. And then I have a separate charger and a separate solar controller and all this. So, you know, it just gets complicated. Well, when you get to 50 amp, as you'll find out when you listen to Brian's video, it gets a lot more complicated. And so that's why we're going with the way that we're doing it and everything, based on his experience and what he's shown in his videos. He's a great resource. Well, it's time to start installing this equipment, and I talked about it a little bit already, but we're going with the with all Victron, and we're utilizing their Lynx line, which is a little different. But before I show you the Lynx line, let me show you these. These are the charge controllers that we're going to use. These are 100 volts by 50 amps is how that's rated. I'm doing 2 solar panels in series. That's what I showed in the last video, and those lines come down into my outside compartment. Now the lines I'm running there are all 10 gauge wire, and about the max amps that I'm putting out from the solar panels to here is 12 amps. We're putting out like 90 something volts, 97, could be 97. So the way that Victron figures out your calculations, if you use their little chart, is if you're sending it the equator with the most optimum ability, then that's what they figure for you to buy for their equipment. So they really want me to buy the next stage up from this, which is a 150/60. However, that controller is like $150 or $200 more than this one. And so when I do the calculations, I use this one site that I'll put here in the description that allows you to change some of the parameters, And some of the ones that I'm changing is it's saying at negative 40 degrees. Yeah, right. And you know, at the optimum sun, I'm going to be using 97 volts. 97 volts will come out of my solar panel, and I can get as much as 51 amps. So for that one extra amp, Victron wants me to spend an extra couple $100 per controller, and there's 3 controllers. So it's just not worth it to me. So the likelihood of us even hitting 50 amps with the panels mounted flat on the roof, and you know, maybe in the summer an optimum spot, you know, I may get 51, but the controller is going to cap it off at 50. So I'm good with that. I mean, 50 is all I've been getting out of the other, you know, rig, and we're going to have the same number of batteries and everything as the other rig. So the fact that I have 3 of these that could do as much as 50 each, that's way overkill. I mean, I'll have over 2,000 watts on the roof. So, you know, I'm just going with the a little less expensive way of doing it. And I've got a friend that says that he runs, this will be like 700 something watts on this controller. He runs 900 and something, and he very seldom ever sees 50. And so, and then the fact that I'm going to have multiple controllers means that if one side is shaded or one side quits, you know, one of these quit or whatever the case may be, then I've still got others working. So it's a win-win. So anyway, so I got 3 of these, and these are going to be mounted on the right side as you look in right above the fuse box, and these are just standard mounts. So let me go ahead and open this up. There's nothing special to these as far as mounting them and everything, so I think the issue is just getting them out of the box. But I'll just show you here what it looks like. So they're pretty compact little units. That's what they look like. So we'll take this plastic, take it out of the plastic bag. So that was just in the plastic bag itself. So there is the controller, and they do have a little sheet on the back here that talks about, you know, programming this and everything. It's got some pretty good size heat sinks on the back here, so the air just flows up and down between here as you mount it on the wall. So it's just 4 screws, mounts on the wall. It does have a ground lug right over here that you ground to, and then it's got 4 connections for wires. So my PV, which is my photo stuff, which is my solar panels, they go in here. So it's got a plus and minus here for the solar, and then on this other side, on the left side, is for the battery. And so this will be converting this up to 50 amps, and since I'm going to be going as high as 50 amps, I'm not going very far, but I'm going to go to a 6-gauge wire. So a 6-gauge wire will go from here to the actual links thing that I'm going to show you here in a second. So 3 of these with 3 wires going into the links. Well, let's talk about the links. Links is a little different setup. Basically, so it's this big box. So it's got just some, you know, brochure stuff here and instructions with a communication that connects to them. You can hook up, I think it's a maximum of 3 of these together, and you can run 4 devices off of each one of these. So we'll be running, you know, 3 of our solar controllers. We have this little Orion XS, which is a DC to DC charger, so it's 50 amps. That'll be running in there, so that's 4. And then I have another one that I can hook 4 to, and the Multiplus, which is our inverter converter, uses 2 connections just for that. So instead of running, you know, big heavy cable between the Multiplus and their 4-aught cable, which won't really fit into the Multiplus anyway, I've got 2-aught cable, and I'll run 2 negatives and 2 positives from the Multiplus into here. So it'll be going into 2 different spots within the Lynx distributor. Now, if we open up the Lynx distributor here, this is what it looks like. There is 2 screws here that takes this cover off, and that's just a cover. So if we show you the inside of this, the nice thing is it's got 4 different connections on here, and if you lift up these plastic things, these will, let's see, that'll pop up there. The negative goes down here, so this bar going across here is negative, and then you hook up your negative lug there, you break these little tab things off. The positive comes here, and you hook a mega fuse from here to here. So each one of my charge controllers is gonna one at a time come in here, and because this is 50 amps, I'm putting a 60 amp mega fuse right here. And so each individual solar panel coming down goes through my breaker box, which is rated at 25 amps is the breakers I put in there. It's only about a 12 amp wire coming, 12 amp connection coming through there. And the wire is rated up to 30 amps, so I've got plenty of there. So I'm just putting a 25 amp fuse in there, which is way overkill for how much power that's coming down anyway. And then once it comes out of the charge controller, it's now going to be, could be as high as 50. So I'm going to put a 60 amp fuse here. You want to go just a little bit bigger than what the rating is with the mega fuses. I gave the information to Discount Solar where I bought all this stuff, and he says you want to go with 60 amp mega fuses. So I'm doing that. The place where the Multiplus comes in, one side will come in here, one side will come in here, and each one of these will have a 400 mega fuse on them. So, but on this particular controller, we're just going to have the charge controllers come in here, the DC to DC charger from the alternator will come into here, and then we have another one of these that hooks onto these little tabs here. Anyway, it's 2 bolts on the other one that's just like, it looks just like this, and the 2 on this side, these will slide in right here and bolt onto those, and so they all bolt together, and then they are connected with a shunt. So one of the things I've talked about in previous videos with solar is the first thing I always suggest someone get before they do anything with solar or anything, you really need to know how much battery you're using. And so if you use a shunt, then the shunt measures the amount of amperage that's going back and forth. So amp hours used for that particular battery. So if your battery is 100 amp hours and it's fully charged, then as you're using it, then that's going to start counting down negative until it gets close to 100. Typically you won't get all the way to a dead battery before the battery shuts off, but that's what that shunt does. So at that point, you know, I can look at my shunt and I have 630 amp hours of battery. We typically use about 130 to 150 a night of usage, and so I get a good idea of what my usage is. Then I can decide how much solar I really want to put on to accommodate that, because if I'm not doing anything, you know, why spend a ton of money on solar or whatever, you know. If I'm not using very much, then maybe it's more cost effective just to run my generator and not even do solar. And so those are the decisions you have to make, is how much is it gonna, you know, where's that return on investment? Now, in our particular case, we really don't like running our generator if we don't have to. We prefer solar all the time. So we're investing in the solar, and because we're doing it on a long-term, full-time basis, to us it's a good investment, and we really like the solar anyway. So, and I got the solar panels for pretty good price. So overall, this whole system with Victron, which is kind of the cream of the crop type of equipment, I am spending less, and I'll come up with the total numbers eventually, but I'm spending less on this solar install than I did when I installed Beulah 7 years ago, just because, of course, the prices have changed a lot. But in this particular case, this box is a shunt. Now, we normally use, in Beulah, we use a small shunt. It's just a 500 amp shunt, and that's good for most anybody. Okay, the fact that I'm doing this Lynx distributor thing, and these all bolt together on these little tabs, then I'm using this shunt, which is rated at 1,000 amps. So definitely a little bit overkill. My batteries can put out, 900 amps on a continuous pull until they're dead. So that's the whole cool thing about Lion Energy, is their batteries are rated that way. A lot of places they, you run for 10 seconds and that's all you get. But in the case of Lion Energy, you can pull a max of 150 amps until the battery's dead, or 200 amps for 10 or 20 seconds. So if I was doing 150 and I've got 6 batteries, that's 900 and something. I'm still covered within this. Before in Beulah, if I ever did that, I think everything would melt, and the shunt's only rated at 500 amps anyway. But anyway, this is the shunt, and it has a bunch of controls in here, and it'll have a mega fuse in here, also a 400 amp mega fuse on this. And from here we'll be going into a new box which we haven't got yet. It's a Servo. It's called a Servo GX, I think, from Victron. And that's the thing that gives you the cute little display and all that kind of stuff, except I'm not going to be putting a display in. I'm going to just be managing it all from my phone. Just mainly because I don't want to try to figure out how to run a wire from all the way in the back of my rig all the way to the front just to have a display. I may eventually put a little iPad up there and just have it, talk Bluetooth to it, or talk Wi-Fi to it, or whatever. A lot of options with the Victron. So what we're going to do now is we need to put these all together. So these will all hook together, and then we'll take that whole setup and bolt it to our plywood underneath. And at that point, we're ready to start hooking up charge controllers and plugging them each into the wire. And we got some 4/0 big heavy duty wire that will go from here through switches and fuses and whatevers, and go to the batteries. The batteries are about 10 feet from where this equipment is. So I'm going with 4/0 wire, and that's what I have on Beulah also. And so that stuff's a little pricey at $10 a foot, but it's a good wire and it'll work really well. And Victron has another thing that's called a Lynx line in, that looks identical to this Lynx distributor, except it doesn't have the fuse spots here. Okay, but as far as looks, it looks the same. It's just that you hook each battery individually to a post, which means I'd need 2 of these at about 200 bucks a piece, and then they're all individually done. But in my particular case, I talked to Lion Energy, and I'm running positive in one side of the battery, and then all the batteries are all connected together, and I run negative out the other side, and all my wires are the same. And Lion is saying, that works just fine. Make sure all your cables are the same length, which I have. If you're going to go with the Lynx, power in for Victron, that's okay too. You just need to make sure that each cable from each battery is the same exact length, whether it needs to be or not. They're all the same, because you want the resistance to be the same between all the batteries. So just cost me $300 for my 4/0 wire, and so that's to go from the battery to this connection, my shunt. That's just one time. If I had to do that for 6 batteries, that would definitely get pretty expensive. I have the Lynx system all connected together here. So on the far right is a Lynx distributor that ties into another Lynx distributor that ties into the shunt. So that's all bolted, torqued to specs, and now we just need to mount that onto the plywood. I have started running the wire down here, and I've got the fuse box from the solar right here, so it's ready to have the wires placed in there, and then we can put our solar chargers up here. I have the solar chargers mounted up there. I have the distributive stuff mounted right there. I'm waiting for a tool to crimp the lug nuts so I can put those on. So again, on the side right here is a spot for a 6-gauge wire to connect to, so I've only got one screw on each side there to hold those in temporarily, because I'm going to have to pull those off to be able to get the lug nut on there and screw it on there. Well, I've got the tire pushed out there as far as I can. I have taken the corners off here and cut the rivets. So I need to see what's in under this, because I think that's the only way I'm going to be able to get the wire back to the back. They've got it siliconed along the sides, along with the rivet I cut off back there. Well, looks like some hole. Got it propped up. Kind of interesting. Looks like some kind of a nest or something right there, but it is an open channel between the two C channels of the frame, so that's just the middle of the frame. So I think I can just drill a hole in the top of this piece of wood and drop into that frame right there. Now we just have to figure out how to get out of there. And if we can get through there, then we'll be right by the axles. Oh, there's a piece of metal right there. They've kind of enclosed that, so I need to put a hole through that. And then I'll be into that little chamber. This is the frame right here. This is what the sides are going around. Oh, look. I was able to slide a push rod right through that little hole right there. Wonder how hard that'll be to pull a couple cables through there. This is my battery compartment right now. There's one lithium battery in here, and this positive wire here that I'm kind of moving around goes over to this one stud, and then you can see that we have several things happening here. So one of those goes to this on-off switch right here. The other one goes to this fuse. So I have no idea where that's going. It looks like it's going up to the engine, but we are just guessing, because when we look at this box that switch is going into, this is the switch. So that's shutting the power off to this main piece down here, but there's a lot of stuff going a lot of places. And then I don't know if this is supposed to be some kind of fuse, or they've just bypassed it and put a plate in there. I really don't know what is going on right here, so we're gonna start testing all this out. Try to figure out how our wiring is gonna work with our new setup. So I was able to run the wires all the way down along that C channel. You can see on the other side, the C channel, how they have wires ran in there. Well, I ran these down on this side, and they come out into the battery compartment right here. So the cool thing about this is that if you look at this drawing, this is how I'm going to put my batteries in here, and they'll fit right in this first tray with no trouble. I actually have another tray down here too, where I could put just as many batteries, another 6 if I wanted to, but 6 has been good for me. The nice thing about this is I've pulled a bunch of excess here, but basically the plus of the battery will be here. So my plus wire, which is this red one, will be just a little bit longer than the black one, but the black one, because it'll kind of connect right about here, the black one, I'm going to put a switch on the black one, so there'll be some extra wire that will be used up in the actual compartment where the rest of the hardware is. All right, with a little help from Ninette, I was able to, we got a 2-aught cable here that's going to go from the Victron stuff back to where the battery compartment is. That's what the rig is going to be running off of. And we have a 4-gauge wire here that comes from the battery itself to our DC to DC charger. We're going to finish running all this in here, and then we'll start putting all the equipment, plywood and everything back in, and start hooking it up. I've ran the wiring up through this sleeve that I put in, and I've installed another sleeve on that side right there. And right down here, you can see that I have drilled a hole in the frame of the rig, and I've use my grinder to grind off the top and the bottom so that it's nice and shiny on both sides, and that's going to be my ground. So I'm using a 2-aught cable that's going to be my ground. That's going to go to my Lynx distributor ground. That'll ground the whole system. And I have a 2 gauge right here that I have, or 2-aught I should say, that I ran back to the main battery compartment where everything in the rig connects to as far as for lights and all that kind of stuff. So that's on 2-aught. The ground is a 2-aught. And from the battery up to here is 4-aught. So that's this really thick one right here, right back here. Anyway, that's coming up here to the Lynx distributor stuff, or the shunt is all 4-aught. And then we'll go from there. So for now, we need to wire this up for the ground so we can put this back together. So I've got a little shredded washer here, and that will go next to the frame, and then this will go onto that washer like this, and that's going to bolt down onto the frame. And then I've also got a flat washer that will go on top of the right here, and then the nut will go through there, because we just want to make sure we got a good connection for this bolt going through there. Anyway, we got a flat washer, lock washer for the bottom with a nut also. So we're going to feed that all through here. All right, that's coming up through that sleeve right there, so that's good. And we have a hole right here that a rivet was in, so we're going to put another rivet back in there. I've undone the rivets on all of this so it moves. And so now I'm going to just rivet this one hole here just to hold it here, so when I'm sliding the tire in and out it doesn't move. But I still want to be able to access this later if I need to from the other side. So I'm just going to be able to lift it up from the other side, and worst case I can crawl in here and cut this off with my little cutter again if I have to. But so I don't want to put all 3 rivets in there. I'm just going to see what I can do with just doing one. Okay. Got our DC to DC back here in the corner, so that's going there. That wire runs up to the battery, well, up to, it's running to the very back of the rig where the battery is. This is our Multiplus right now. If I zoom up there, you can see the Multiplus right here. So we have our ground lug here that goes over to the ground lug. We have two 2-aught cables, red, and we have 2 2-aught black. So in essence, that's more copper than a 4-aught wire. And 4-aught, you can't really get into this little bracket here. So we're using 2-aughts, 2 2s, and so that's coming up to this piece right here. That's the Multiplus. So we have 2 2-aughts coming in here with 2 400 amp fuses there, and that is that piece of it. This is the battery I borrowed when we bought the coach, so we're going to go ahead and pull that battery out, and I'm replacing them with these 2 batteries that Greg from Lion Energy sent me to check out. I will be doing a video later about these batteries, but right now this is going to be our 2 batteries to test out the system, make sure it's all running. I have everything all cleaned up. All the DC is wired. I'm just missing 2 fuses right here that will be in later today. And I have received the Servo GX. So, not very big. I'm going to mount it right here. And this is where all the different connections from all the different devices go into this device. And we've got to run power. We're going to run power up to this little bus bar right there. But once that's on there and everything, then this connects with our Wi-Fi in the rig. And at that point, I can access these settings anywhere from my phone. So that'll be pretty nice. We can get on the internet anytime we are out traveling around, and we can see what's going on as far as the rig is concerned. We still have to do the AC side, and that is going to be another story. Or in our case, another video. Okay, this is what it looks like when it's all done. We are on. We just have to program things up. And of course, the last thing we have to do is to wire the AC up on the Multiplus. So it's turned off right now.